The rancher closed the door on his new bride. Then his daughter revealed why she had come. By the time Clara Bennett reached the lonely ranch in the Montana Territory, the man who had promised to marry her had already decided to send her home. She did not know it yet. The afternoon sun hung pale behind a curtain of dust as the wagon climbed the last hill. Clara sat straight despite the ache in her back, one gloved hand resting on the small blue trunk beside her. Inside it were 2 dresses, her mother's Bible, a silver hairbrush, and every useful thing she had managed to save from the life she had left behind in Missouri. The driver pointed with his whip. "That's the Hale place." Below them stood a weathered ranch house surrounded by open grassland. A barn leaned slightly toward the wind. Beyond it, cattle moved like dark marks beneath the wide sky. There was no garden, no washing on the line, and no smoke rising from the chimney. It did not look abandoned. It looked as though the people living there had forgotten how to make a place feel alive. A man waited beside the porch. Nathan Hale was taller than Clara had imagined from his photograph. His shoulders were broad beneath a faded brown coat, and his face carried the hard stillness of someone who had spent years hiding every thought that might weaken him. He removed his hat when the wagon stopped, but he did not smile. "Miss Bennett." "Mr. Hale." For a moment, neither moved. Clara had crossed more than 1,000 miles because of 13 letters written in Nathan's careful hand. He had told her about the ranch, the nearby river, the winter winds, and the small schoolhouse 8 miles east. He had written that he was a widower raising an 8-year-old daughter. He had never written about loneliness. Yet Clara had seen it between every line. Nathan reached for her trunk, but before his hand touched the handle, the front door opened. A little girl stood in the doorway. She wore a faded yellow dress beneath a boy's wool coat. One braid had come loose, and she clutched a wooden horse with one broken leg. Her gray eyes moved over Clara's face slowly, almost fearfully. Nathan's voice softened. "Lucy, you were told to stay inside." The girl ignored him. She stepped off the porch and walked toward Clara. The wind lifted strands of her hair across her cheeks, but she did not brush them away. "Are you the lady from the letters?" she asked. Clara lowered herself until they were nearly eye to eye. "I am." Lucy studied her another moment. Then she held out the broken wooden horse. "This was my mama's." Nathan's jaw tightened. Clara accepted it carefully. The horse had been carved by hand. One side was worn smooth from years of being held. "It must be very special." Lucy nodded. She said you can tell what kind of person someone is by how they hold something that is already broken. Nathan looked sharply at his daughter. "Lucy." But Clara did not laugh or offer a quick promise. She cradled the small horse in both hands as though it were whole. "I believe your mother was right." Something changed in Lucy's face. Not quite trust, not yet. But hope came close. Supper was served before sunset. Clara had expected questions about her journey, perhaps even talk of the wedding Nathan had once suggested might take place upon her arrival. Instead, silence filled the kitchen. The room was clean but bare. A cracked clock ticked above the stove. 3 chairs stood around the table, though one appeared not to have been used in years. Lucy talked enough for everyone. She told Clara about a red calf that escaped every fence, a creek that froze solid in January, and a hill where wildflowers grew after the spring rains. Each time she mentioned her mother, Nathan's hands became still. Clara noticed. She noticed everything. She had spent 10 years working in her uncle's boarding house, where silence often revealed more than conversation. She knew when a man was angry, when he was ashamed, and when he had already made a decision but feared speaking it aloud. Nathan had made such a decision. After supper, Lucy was sent upstairs. Her footsteps crossed the ceiling, then stopped directly above the kitchen. She was listening. Nathan remained at the table, turning his coffee cup between rough fingers. "I owe you the truth," he said. Clara folded her hands in her lap. "That would be a fair beginning." His eyes lifted to hers. You should not have come. The clock seemed louder. Outside, a horse shifted near the hitching rail. Clara kept her voice steady. Your last letter asked me to. I know what it said. Then something has changed. Nathan stood and walked to the dark window. His reflection stared back at him like a stranger. I believed Lucy needed a woman in this house, someone patient, someone decent. He paused. I convinced myself that was enough reason to bring you here. And now I see what I've done. Clara waited. Nathan's shoulders rose beneath a slow breath. I asked a woman to leave everything she knew and come to a man she had never met. I offered her a home without telling her that I may lose it before winter. Clara's eyes narrowed slightly. The ranch is in danger. There's a debt. How much? That does not concern you. It concerned me the moment you invited me here. His expression hardened, but she saw fear beneath it. Not fear for himself. Fear for the child upstairs. Nathan turned away. A wagon leaves for Cedar Ridge tomorrow morning. You can stay at the hotel until the eastbound train comes through. I'll pay what I can toward your journey. Clara looked toward the ceiling. The floorboard above them gave a faint creak. Lucy had heard every word. Clara rose slowly. Her pride told her to refuse his money, take her trunk, and leave before dawn. She had survived hunger, loss, and men who mistook quietness for weakness. She could survive this too. Then a small voice came from the staircase. You promised. Lucy stood halfway down the steps, tears bright in her eyes. She was holding the broken wooden horse against her chest. Nathan's face went pale. Lucy, go back to bed. You promised you would let her try. I said go upstairs. The girl descended one more step. No. The word was small, but it stopped him. Lucy looked at Clara, then at her father. You think she came here for you, she whispered, but she didn't. Nathan stared at her. What are you talking about? Lucy tightened her grip on the wooden horse. I wrote the last 3 letters. And in the silence that followed, Clara understood that the greatest secret at the Hale Ranch had not been hidden by the grieving man standing before her. It had been hidden by his daughter. Nathan did not move. The fire in the stove gave a soft pop, and somewhere outside, the wind pushed against the barn door. Clara watched the color drain from his face as he stared at his daughter. You did what? He asked. Lucy came down the last few steps. I wrote the letters. Nathan's voice dropped, the last 3. She nodded. The broken wooden horse trembled in her hands. Clara looked from the child to Nathan. She remembered those final letters clearly. They had been different from the others, warmer, less careful. One had asked whether she liked children who talked too much when they were nervous. Another had described the wildflowers behind the east pasture. The last had ended with a line that had stayed in her mind through every mile of the journey. A house can be quiet even when people are inside it. Clara had believed Nathan wrote those words. Now she understood why they had felt so honest. Nathan crossed the room in 2 long steps and knelt in front of Lucy. How did you get into my desk? Lucy's chin tightened. The key was under the flour tin. That is not an answer. I watched you hide it. Nathan closed his eyes for a moment. His anger was there, but it had nowhere safe to go. When he spoke again, his voice was strained. You had no right. I know. You signed my name. I know. You asked a woman to cross half the country. Lucy's eyes filled. I know. Nathan stood so quickly that his chair scraped the floor. Clara saw Lucy flinch. It was small, almost nothing, but Nathan saw it too. His anger left him at once. He stepped back, as though ashamed of the space he had taken up. Lucy pressed the wooden horse against her chest. You stopped writing to her, she said. You said you were going to tell her not to come. Nathan looked toward Clara. Clara did not rescue him from the truth. Lucy went on. You said the ranch was too hard. You said she would be sorry. But every time her letters came, you read them twice. Nathan's mouth tightened. That was none of your concern. It is my house, too. The words landed harder than a shout. Lucy's lower lip shook, but she held Nathan's gaze. I heard you tell Mr. Webb that a child needs more than food and a roof. You said I needed someone who knew how to be gentle. Then you got scared and stopped writing. Nathan turned away. Clara could see the shame in the line of his back. Lucy looked at her. So I finished. Clara crouched beside her. What did you write? Lucy swallowed. I told you Papa burns the biscuits when he tries to cook. I told you he sits outside your room. Nathan turned sharply. My room. Mama's room, Lucy corrected. The room he said would be yours. A heavy silence filled the kitchen. Nathan's face had become unreadable. Lucy's voice grew quieter. I told you he does not laugh much, but sometimes he almost does when the calves run from him. I told you he is not mean, even when he sounds mean, and I asked if you would still come. Clara remembered that question too. Would you still come if the man you were meant to marry had forgotten how to hope? She had answered yes. Not because she believed she could save a stranger, but because she knew what it was to live in a place where grief had taken every chair at the table. Her own mother had died when Clara was 16. Her father had not followed in body, but something in him had gone with her. For years, Clara had watched him move through each day as though kindness were another debt he could no longer afford. She had come west to begin again. She had not expected to find the same sorrow waiting under a different roof. Nathan walked to the window. You should have told me, he said. Lucy rubbed her thumb over the horse's worn back. You would have said no. Yes. That is why. Clara almost smiled, but the moment was too fragile. Nathan stared into the dark yard. Go upstairs, Lucy. The girl looked at Clara. Is she still leaving? Nathan said nothing. Lucy's fear returned at once. Papa. Clara rose. No one is deciding anything tonight. Nathan turned, Miss Bennett. She has confessed to something serious, Clara said. She has also been carrying it alone. Sending her to bed without an answer will not teach her honesty. It will teach her that truth only makes people leave faster. Nathan's jaw tightened. Clara expected him to argue. Instead, he looked at his daughter. You are not to touch my desk again. I won't. You are not to write letters in my name. I won't. And tomorrow, we will speak about what you have done. Lucy nodded. Nathan glanced toward Clara. She stays tonight. Lucy's shoulders dropped with relief. Only tonight, Nathan added. The relief vanished. Clara took the wooden horse from Lucy and examined the broken leg. Do you have glue? Lucy blinked. In the barn. Then tomorrow we might see what can be done. Nathan's eyes moved to the toy. That horse has been broken for 3 years. Broken things sometimes wait for the right hands. He looked at her then, and Clara knew he understood she was not speaking only of the horse. Lucy went upstairs slowly. This time her steps did not stop above the kitchen. Nathan remained by the window. You should hate me, he said. Clara looked at him. For what? For bringing you into this. You did not. He gave a bitter breath. My daughter did. No, your daughter wrote 3 letters. You wrote 10 before them. That does not make this right. No, Clara said, but it makes it more complicated than you want it to be. Nathan faced her. The debt is real. So is the child upstairs. I cannot ask you to stay because she wants you. You are not asking. His eyes narrowed. Clara walked toward the blue trunk still resting beside the door. She laid one hand on its worn lid. I will remain until the next train reaches Cedar Ridge. Nathan's expression hardened. That is 4 days. I know. You may still leave tomorrow. I may. And if you stay, nothing is promised. Clara met his gaze. Nothing ever was. For the first time since her arrival, something almost human softened Nathan's face. Then a horse whinnied sharply outside. Nathan's head turned toward the yard. Another horse answered from beyond the gate. A rider was approaching fast. Nathan reached for the rifle above the door and stepped onto the porch. Clara followed far enough to see a dark figure dismount beneath the swinging lantern. The rider was an older man with a gray coat and mud on his boots. He did not offer a greeting. "Nathan," he said, breathing hard, "you need to come to town." Nathan lowered the rifle slightly. "Why?" The man looked past him and saw Clara standing in the doorway. His eyes changed. "The bank filed against the ranch this afternoon," he said, "and they are not waiting until winter." Nathan went still. The rider removed his hat. "They mean to take the Hale place in 30 days. The words seemed to remain in the cold night air long after the rider had spoken them. 30 days. Nathan lowered the rifle. "Who signed the filing?" The older man shifted his hat between his hands. "Silas Crow." Nathan's face changed. Clara saw anger there, but something deeper too, recognition, the kind that came when a feared thing finally stepped into the light. "Crow does not own the bank," Nathan said. "He owns enough of the debt." The rider looked toward the upstairs window, where a small shadow had appeared behind the curtain. "He bought the note from Miller this morning, paid less than half its value from what I heard. He wants the land, Nathan, not the money." Nathan's gaze moved toward the dark fields beyond the barn. Clara followed it. Even at night, the ranch seemed to stretch forever. Dry grass rolled beneath the moon, silver at the edges. Somewhere beyond the eastern ridge ran a narrow river, the one Nathan had mentioned often in his letters, the only reliable water for miles. Now Clara understood. "He wants the river," she said. Both men looked at her. The rider gave a slow nod. "Ma'am sees quickly." Nathan's voice was flat. "Crow has been buying land south of here for 2 years. The Hale place splits his range in half." "And the river crosses your property," Clara said. "For nearly 3 miles. The older man put his hat back on. "There is more. Crow told the town clerk he means to challenge the original boundary survey. Says your east pasture was marked wrong." Nathan gave a humorless laugh. "That line has stood since my father drove the first post. Crow does not care what stood before. He cares what he can make people doubt now." The rider mounted again. "The papers are at the courthouse. You should see them at first light." Nathan stepped down from the porch. "Thank you, Amos." The man looked once more toward the upstairs window. "Do not thank me yet." Then he rode into the dark, the sound of his horse fading along the hard road. Nathan remained in the yard. Clara waited in the doorway, one hand against the frame. The lantern above her moved in the wind, sending his shadow back and forth across the dirt. At last he spoke. "You should leave tomorrow." Clara almost laughed at the stubbornness of it. "A man has just told you someone means to steal your ranch." "That is exactly why. You think danger becomes smaller when fewer people stand beside you. I think it becomes mine alone." The upstairs floor creaked. Lucy was still listening. Clara stepped onto the porch and pulled the door closed behind her. "You keep saying that as though being alone is proof of strength." Nathan turned. "You do not know Crow." "No, but I know men who hide greed behind paperwork. This is not a boarding house dispute over an unpaid room." "No," Clara said, "it is worse, which is why you need a clear head, not pride." His eyes sharpened. "You have been here half a day. And already I know you burn biscuits, hide keys beneath flour tins, and make important choices without asking the people whose lives they change." Nathan stared at her. The wind lifted dust around their boots. For one brief second, Clara thought he might order her off the property before sunrise. Instead, his shoulders dropped. "What would you have me do?" It was the first honest question he had asked her. "Show me the books." His expression closed again. "No. You said there is debt. I kept accounts for 6 years. This is not your concern. You asked me here to become your wife. That was before you became afraid." Nathan's jaw tightened. Clara regretted the words as soon as they left her, not because they were false, but because they had struck the wound rather than the man. He looked toward the barn. "When my wife became ill, I rode through a storm to find a doctor. I left her here because I believed doing something was better than staying beside her." Clara said nothing. Nathan's voice grew quieter. "I came back too late." The lantern chain squeaked above them. "So when I tell you to leave," he continued, "it is not because I think myself strong. It is because I have already learned what happens when someone trusts my judgment." His confession settled between them. Clara's anger softened, but she did not step away. "You did not cause her death. You do not know that. I know a man cannot command a storm. He can choose whether to ride into it. And if you had stayed—" Nathan looked at her then. She saw the answer before he gave it. "I would have watched her die." "Yes," Clara said gently, "and perhaps that is the part you cannot forgive." He turned his face away. The door opened behind them. Lucy stood barefoot on the porch, wrapped in a quilt. She held the broken wooden horse against her chest. "Papa," she whispered. Nathan faced her at once. "You should be asleep." "I heard about the ranch." Clara knelt and drew the quilt more tightly around the girl's shoulders. Lucy looked up at her father. "Will Mr. Crow take Mama's hill?" Nathan's face went still. Clara glanced between them. "What hill?" Lucy pointed east. "The place where she is buried." Nathan closed his eyes. The river land was not merely pasture. Crow's claim reached the grave. That was why Nathan had looked toward the ridge when Amos spoke. That was why the threat had struck him like a bullet. Lucy's hand slipped into Clara's. "Please do not leave tomorrow." Clara felt Nathan watching her. This was no longer about a strange marriage arranged through letters. It was about a frightened child, a grieving father, and a piece of land carrying the last place their family had remained whole. Clara squeezed Lucy's hand. "I will go to town with your father in the morning." Nathan opened his mouth to object. She met his gaze. "You may send me away after I see the papers." Lucy looked at him with such desperate hope that the argument died before it began. Nathan finally nodded. "4 days," he said. Clara understood what he meant. That was all he could promise. For now, it was enough. If Lucy's small act of courage has touched your heart, stay with the story, because the papers waiting in town held a secret even Nathan did not know. At sunrise, Clara found him in the barn saddling 2 horses. He handed her a worn riding glove without looking at her. "Crow will be at the courthouse." Clara pulled on the glove. "Good." Nathan glanced over. "Why is that good?" "Because I would rather see the face of the man trying to take this home." They rode toward Cedar Ridge beneath a sky the color of iron. Neither saw the figure standing near the eastern fence, watching them leave. And neither knew that before nightfall, someone would enter the Hale house and search Nathan's locked desk. Cedar Ridge came into view just before mid-morning. The town sat low between 2 long hills, with a church steeple at one end and the courthouse at the other. Wagons crowded the main road. Horses stood tied outside the mercantile. Dust moved through the street in thin sheets, catching against boots and porch steps. Clara had imagined the courthouse as a grand stone building. It was not. It was a square wooden structure with peeling white paint and 2 narrow windows facing the road. A brass bell hung beside the door. Someone had nailed a notice to the wall crookedly. Nathan dismounted without speaking. Clara followed. She had worn her plain gray dress beneath a dark riding coat. The hem was already marked with dust, but she ignored it. Nathan noticed anyway. His eyes dropped briefly toward the stain, then lifted. "You do not have to come inside." Clara tied her horse to the rail. "You have said that about nearly everything since I arrived. I am trying to give you choices." "No, you are trying to make the choice for me and call it kindness." Nathan looked as though he might answer, but the courthouse door opened. A man stepped out wearing a black coat too fine for the street. Silas Crow was not what Clara expected. He was neither broad nor loud. He had a narrow face, silver hair, and careful hands. His boots were clean despite the dust. A gold watch chain crossed his vest, and his smile held no warmth. "Mr. Hale," he said, "you came quickly." Nathan's shoulders hardened. "You gave me 30 days. I gave you notice. You bought a note that was not for sale. Everything is for sale when a man needs money badly enough." Crow's eyes moved to Clara. For the smallest moment, surprise entered his expression. "And who is this?" "Clara Bennett," she said before Nathan could answer. Crow waited. Clara waited too. At last Nathan said, "She is staying at the ranch." Crow's smile deepened. "That is not what I asked. It is all you need to know." Clara felt the tension between them tighten like wire. Crow studied her with the calm interest of a man measuring a new obstacle. "Miss Bennett, Cedar Ridge is not an easy place for strangers. I have noticed, and the Hale Ranch is less welcoming than most." Nathan took one step forward. Crow did not move. Clara spoke before the moment worsened. "Then it is fortunate I did not come looking for easy." Crow's eyes narrowed slightly. He touched the brim of his hat. "I hope the West does not disappoint you." Then he walked past them toward a waiting carriage. Nathan watched until he was gone. "You should not challenge him. I answered a question. He does not hear answers, he hears resistance." Clara looked toward the courthouse door. Then perhaps he should become used to hearing it. Inside, the air smelled of paper, lamp oil, and old wood. A thin clerk with round spectacles sat behind a tall counter, copying names into a ledger. Nathan requested the filing. The clerk hesitated. Only for a second. But Clara saw it. So did Nathan. "Is there a problem, Mr. Pike?" he asked. "No problem." The clerk disappeared into a back room and returned with a folded document tied in red string. Nathan opened it on a nearby table. Clara stood beside him. The filing listed the debt, the late payments, and Crow's demand for full settlement within 30 days. Beneath that was a second claim challenging the eastern boundary of the Hale property. Clara read each line slowly. Then she read it again. "This survey date is wrong," she said. Nathan looked at her. "What?" She pointed to the lower page. "It says the eastern boundary was registered in 1871. "That cannot be right. My father filed it in 1868. "Are you certain?" "I was 12. I remember riding to town with him." Clara looked toward the clerk. "Where are the original land records?" Mr. Pike adjusted his spectacles. "In storage. We need to see them. That is not permitted without the judge's approval." Nathan leaned both hands on the counter. "The filing is built on the date in those records. The copy is official." Clara watched the clerk's face. His eyes would not remain on Nathan. She glanced toward his right hand and noticed a faint dark mark on his finger. Fresh ink, the same blue-black color used on the filing. "When was this copy made?" she asked. The clerk looked at her. "Yesterday." "By whom?" "By the office." "That is not a person." Mr. Pike swallowed. Nathan turned toward Clara. She tapped the paper. The number 7 is darker than the rest of the date. The clerk's mouth opened. Clara continued. The ink has not faded the same. Someone changed an 8 into a 1. Nathan stared at the page. The original date must have read 1868. Now it read 1871. A 3-year difference was enough to make another survey appear older. Enough to put Sarah's Hill on Crow's side of the line. Nathan's voice became dangerously quiet. Who touched this document? I do not know. You copied it. I copy many things. Clara stepped closer to the counter. Mr. Pike, look at me. He did. Fear sat plainly in his face. Not guilt alone. Fear? Did Silas Crow threaten you? Clara asked. The clerk glanced toward the courthouse window. That was answer enough. Nathan moved around the counter, but Clara caught his sleeve. Not here. He altered my father's record. And if you strike him or frighten this clerk, Crow will use that too. Nathan's breathing was hard. After a long moment, he stepped back. Clara turned to Mr. Pike. We need the original ledger. I cannot give it to you. Then tell us where it is. He shook his head quickly. Clara lowered her voice. If Crow changed a public record, he will not protect the man who helped him. He will leave you standing alone when the judge asks questions. Mr. Pike's face tightened. I did not change it. Then prove that. The clerk looked toward the back room again. At last, he whispered, the original book is not here. Nathan went still. Where is it? Mr. Pike looked at Clara as though he had decided she was less likely to break him than Nathan. Mr. Crow took it last night. The room became silent. He cannot remove a county record, Clara said. He said it was needed for review. And you allowed it. The clerk's eyes filled with shame. He knows about my brother's debts. Nathan turned toward the door. Where would Crow keep it? Mr. Pike shook his head. I do not know. Clara folded the altered filing and placed it carefully back on the table. We will need a copy of this. The clerk nodded. Nathan looked at her. For what? To show the change. A changed copy proves nothing without the original. Then we find the original. Before Nathan could answer, the courthouse bell rang once outside. A boy appeared in the doorway, breathing hard. Mr. Hale. Nathan faced him. The boy held out a note. It came from your ranch. Nathan tore it open. Clara saw the words before he could fold the paper away. Your desk was forced open. Lucy is missing. For one terrible second, Nathan stopped breathing. Then he ran. Clara followed him into the street. They reached the horses together, but before Nathan mounted, Clara caught his arm. Do not ride blind. My daughter is gone. And Crow wants you frightened enough to make mistakes. Nathan looked at her with raw panic in his eyes. She is 8 years old. I know. Clara's voice broke, but she held him steady. We bring her home, then we find out who entered that house. Nathan pulled himself into the saddle. They rode hard toward the ranch, dust rising behind them. Neither spoke. Neither needed to. But miles away, beneath Sarah Hale's hill, Lucy sat hidden among the tall grass with the broken wooden horse in her lap. And beside her lay a weather-stained metal box she had taken from Nathan's desk before anyone else could find it. Nathan reached the ranch first. He swung down before his horse had stopped and ran toward the house. The front door stood open. One chair had been knocked onto its side, and the small rug near the desk lay twisted against the wall. Lucy. His voice struck the empty rooms and came back to him. Clara entered behind him, breathing hard from the ride. She saw the broken lock on the desk, papers scattered across the floor, and a drawer hanging crooked from its frame. Nathan searched the kitchen, the bedrooms, and the back porch. Lucy. Nothing answered. A ranch hand named Ben Mercer stood near the stove, hat crushed between both hands. I only stepped out to check the south herd, he said. She was at the table when I left. When I came back, the door was open. Nathan seized the front of his shirt. How long? Maybe 20 minutes. You left her alone. She told me she was staying inside. Nathan's fist tightened. Clara moved between them. Let him go. Nathan did not look at her. He was meant to watch her. And hurting him will not tell us where she went. For a moment Nathan seemed not to hear. Then his fingers opened and Ben stumbled back. Clara knelt beside the desk. The drawer had been forced, but the room showed no wild search. Whoever entered had known exactly where to look. Several account books remained untouched, so did a small pouch of coins. This was not robbery, she said. Nathan turned. What is missing? He came to the desk and searched the broken drawer. His hands moved faster with each second. The land deed is here. The bank papers are here. He stopped. Clara saw the fear return to his face. What? A metal box. What was inside? Nathan looked toward the open door. Letters from my father, old survey notes, a few things Sarah kept. Anything Crow would want. I do not know. Ben spoke from behind them. There were tracks in the yard. Nathan crossed the room. Why did you not say so? I could not tell which were fresh. There are wagon marks from yesterday, and someone rode past the north gate this morning. Clara stood. Lucy knows the ranch. Nathan's expression turned sharp. She would not hide while we search for her. She might if she believed someone dangerous was looking for the box. Nathan stared at her. Then he ran outside. They separated near the barn. Ben took the creek path. Clara searched behind the smokehouse and along the fence. Nathan rode toward the eastern pasture, calling Lucy's name until his voice grew rough. The afternoon wind pressed the grass flat in long waves. Clara found a small boot print near the garden fence. It pointed east. Beside it lay a splinter of pale wood. She picked it up. The broken horse. Mr. Hale. Nathan turned his horse and came back hard. Clara held up the splinter. She went toward the hill. Nathan looked east. Sarah's grave stood beyond a low rise, nearly half a mile from the house. He urged his horse forward, and Clara followed on foot until Ben returned with her mount. By the time they reached the hill, clouds had gathered over the mountains. Nathan dismounted beside a cottonwood tree. Lucy. A faint sound came from the far side of the grave. Clara heard it first. There. Lucy sat in the tall grass with her knees drawn against her chest. The metal box rested beside her. Her face was wet with tears, but she was unharmed. Nathan crossed the distance in 3 strides and dropped to his knees. He pulled her against him so tightly that the wooden horse fell from her hands. Lucy began to sob. I am sorry. Nathan held the back of her head. Do not ever do that again. I thought he would find it. Who? The man in the gray hat. Nathan drew back. What man? He came through the kitchen door. He asked where you kept the papers. Clara crouched beside them. Did he see you? Lucy shook her head. I was under the table. He opened the desk with a metal tool. When he went upstairs, I took the box and ran. Nathan's face went pale. You should have gone to Ben. He was gone. You should have hidden in the barn. He would have found me. Her voice broke. I knew Mama's hill was safe. Nathan looked toward Sarah's grave, and Clara saw pain move through him like a shadow. Lucy wiped her cheek with her sleeve. The man came after me, but he heard horses by the road and left. Did you recognize him? Clara asked. No, but he smelled like the strong soap from the hotel. Nathan exchanged a look with Clara. Crow stayed at the hotel when he came to Cedar Ridge. It was not proof, but it was something. Nathan lifted the metal box. The lock was old, rusted at the edges. You knew this was in my desk. Lucy nodded. Mama showed me before she got sick. She said it held the truth about the ranch. Nathan froze. She said that. Lucy looked frightened by his tone. Yes. Went. The last summer. Nathan sat back in the grass. He had never heard of the box. Clara rested one hand on the metal lid. Can you open it? Nathan reached into his pocket and removed a ring of keys. He tried one, then another. None fit. Lucy picked up the broken wooden horse. There is a key inside. Nathan looked at her. What? Mama put it there. Lucy pressed her thumb against a narrow crack beneath the horse's carved belly. A tiny wooden panel slid loose. Inside lay a small black key. No one spoke. Nathan took it with a trembling hand. The key turned. Inside the box were folded letters, a survey map, and a sealed envelope bearing the name Elias Hale, Nathan's father. Beneath them lay an old photograph of two men standing beside the Eastern River. One was Elias Hale. The other was a younger Silas Crow. On the back, written in faded ink, were 7 words. He knows the boundary was never in doubt. Nathan read the sentence twice. Then Clara opened the survey map. A second line had been drawn across the eastern pasture in red pencil. Beside it was a note signed by Crow himself, dated 15 years earlier. Nathan's voice dropped to a whisper. He witnessed the original survey. Clara looked toward the distant road. Then his claim is not a mistake. No. Nathan folded the paper carefully. It is a lie. If you believe a child's courage can uncover what powerful men try to bury, stay with the story, because the truth inside that box was only the beginning. Thunder rolled beyond the hills. Nathan gathered Lucy into his arms and stood. We returned to the house. Clara picked up the box. As they started down the hill, she noticed a dark shape near the fence below. A rider sat motionless beneath the gathering storm. The man watched them for several seconds. Then he turned his horse toward Cedar Ridge. But before he disappeared, lightning flashed across the sky, bright enough for Nathan to see the silver band around the rider's gray hat. He had seen that hat before. It belonged to Amos Webb, the man who had warned them about the bank. Nathan watched the rider disappear beyond the eastern fence. Amos, he said. Lucy lifted her head from his shoulder. The man who came last night. Nathan did not answer. He carried her down the hill while Clara held the metal box tight against her coat. Rain began in slow, heavy drops, darkening the dust beneath their boots. By the time they reached the house, the storm had opened over the ranch. Ben took the horses to the barn. Nathan locked the front door, checked every window, and pulled the curtains closed. Lucy sat at the kitchen table wrapped in a blanket while Clara warmed milk on the stove. No one spoke of the man in the gray hat. Not yet. The broken wooden horse lay near Lucy's elbow. Its hidden panel remained open, the small space where the key had rested now empty. Clara set the cup before her. Drink slowly. Lucy obeyed, though her hands still trembled. Nathan placed the metal box on the table and removed the papers one by one. The survey map came first, then the photograph, then 3 letters tied with a faded green ribbon. Beneath them lay a small notebook with Elias Hale's name pressed into the leather cover. Nathan sat down. My father never kept a diary. Perhaps this is not one, Clara said. He opened it. The first pages held cattle numbers, water levels, and notes about fence repairs. The writing was neat and narrow. Near the middle, the entries changed. Nathan read silently. Clara watched his expression harden. What does it say? He turned the book toward her. The entry was dated September 1873. Silas returned today asking me to sell the river pasture. He claims his herd will fail without it. I told him the land belongs to Nathan one day and is not mine to trade away for friendship or fear. Clara continued reading. Another entry appeared 2 weeks later. Silas says the survey was poorly drawn. This is false. He stood beside me when the markers were placed. Amos Webb carried the chain and recorded the measure. Nathan looked toward the rain-streaked window. Amos helped conduct the survey. Clara turned another page. A later entry mentioned a dispute at the river. Silas had accused Elias of taking more water than his share. Amos had defended the original line in front of 3 ranchers. Then the note stopped. The final page had been torn out. Clara touched the rough edge. Someone removed it. Nathan looked at the box. Maybe my father. Or someone who knew what it said. Lucy lowered her cup. Is Mr. Amos bad? Nathan's face softened slightly. I do not know. He warned us. Yes. Then why was he watching? Nathan looked toward Clara. Because he wanted to see whether we found the box. Clara gathered the letters. The first was addressed to Elias Hale, but had never been opened. The seal bore the initials SC. Silas Crow. Nathan broke it carefully. The letter was short. Elias, there is no reason for this disagreement to become public. Sell me the eastern strip, and I will forget what is owed between us. Refuse and old records may become less certain than you believe. Nathan set the page down. That sounds like a threat, Clara said. It is. What did Crow mean by what was owed between them? Nathan shook his head. I never heard my father speak of owing him anything. The second letter came from Amos. Elias, I will testify to the line if it comes to that. But Silas has men at the clerk's office, and he knows about the money from Fort Benton. Burn this after reading. Nathan read the last sentence again. The money from Fort Benton. Clara noticed his hand tighten around the paper. What happened there? I do not know. Lucy looked between them. Maybe the last letter says. The third envelope had no name on the outside. Inside was a single page written by Sarah. Nathan recognized the handwriting immediately. He rose from the table as though the chair had burned him. Clara did not touch the letter. You should read it. Nathan remained standing. I cannot. Lucy looked at him. Is it from Mama? He nodded. The rain struck the roof harder. Clara picked up the page but kept it folded. She placed it in the box for a reason. Nathan stared at the stove. Read it. Clara unfolded the paper. Nathan, if you find this, then the matter of the river has returned. Your father told me everything before he died because he feared Silas would wait until you stood alone. Amos knows the truth, but fear has ruled him for many years. Do not trust his warning until he tells you what happened at Fort Benton. Clara paused. Nathan's eyes remained fixed on the floor. She continued. There is one more record, stronger than the survey book. I hid it where Silas would never think to look because he believes grief makes people careless. He is wrong. The key is with Lucy. The place is beneath what we planted together on our first spring at the ranch. The letter ended there. Lucy frowned. What did you plant? Nathan sat down slowly. An apple tree. Clara looked through the window toward the dark yard. Where? Nathan's face had gone pale. Beside the old cabin. What cabin? The first house my father built. It has been empty for years. Lucy straightened. I know it past the north field. Nathan folded Sarah's letter. No one goes there tonight. Clara understood his caution. The storm had turned the roads to mud, and darkness was settling across the fields. But someone else knew the box had been found. Someone else might know about the tree. A knock sounded at the front door. Lucy jumped. Nathan took the rifle from above the mantel and moved quietly through the room. "Who is it?" A voice answered through the storm. "Amos." Nathan did not open the door. "What do you want?" "To tell you why I was at the eastern fence." Nathan raised the rifle slightly. "You have one chance." Amos spoke through the wood. "Silas knows about Sarah's letter." Clara felt the room turn cold. "How?" Nathan asked. "Because I told him." Lucy's cup slipped from her hands and struck the floor. Amos continued before Nathan could answer. "And if we do not reach that apple tree before Crow's men do, you will lose more than the ranch." Nathan opened the door only wide enough to point the rifle through it. Amos stood beneath the porch roof, rain running from the brim of his gray hat. His coat was soaked through, and mud covered one side of his trousers as though he had fallen from his horse. "You told Crow about Sarah's letter?" Nathan asked. Amos looked past the rifle toward Lucy. "Not the whole letter. That is not an answer. It is the truth." Nathan pulled the door wider. "Then come inside and tell all of it." Amos stepped into the kitchen. Clara closed the door behind him and turned the lock. For several seconds, no one spoke. Lucy stood near the table, clutching the broken wooden horse with both hands. She did not look frightened now. She looked betrayed. Amos removed his hat. "I was the chainman when your father marked the eastern line," he said. "I carried the measure. Crow stood beside us. He knew exactly where the boundary ran." "We already know that," Nathan said. "Why did Sarah write that fear ruled you?" Amos looked toward the stove. "Because it did." Nathan's grip tightened around the rifle. "Fort Benton." Amos closed his eyes. "In 1874, Crow and I drove cattle north. He lost most of his money at a card table. Then he borrowed from a man who did not forgive unpaid debts." "What does that have to do with my father?" "Elias lent him money to get home." Nathan frowned. "My father barely had enough for this ranch." "He had enough because the cattle sale was good that year. Crow promised to repay him. He never did." Clara remembered the words in Crow's letter. "Sell me the eastern strip, and I will forget what is owed between us." "He twisted the debt," she said. "He claimed Elias owed him instead." Amos nodded. Crow became respected. Elias became a tired rancher with no interest in public fights. Crow knew people would believe the man with the cleaner coat. Nathan's face hardened. "And you?" "I had signed a statement in Fort Benton saying Crow's debt was mine." The room fell silent. "Why?" Clara asked. Amos rubbed one hand over his wet face. "Crow had a wife then, a young one. She was expecting a child. The lender threatened to come after the family. Crow begged me to put my name on the paper until he could pay." "And he never paid," Nathan said. "No. Instead, he owned you." Amos nodded once. "For 30 years. Lucy's voice was small. "Did Mama know?" Amos looked at her, and shame bent his shoulders. "Yes." "How?" "She found a copy of the Fort Benton statement among Elias' papers. She came to me after your grandfather died." Nathan took one step toward him. "And what did you tell her?" "The truth." "Then why did you warn Crow?" Amos's eyes moved to the window. "Because 3 nights ago, Crow sent a man to my house. He said if I helped you, he would place the Fort Benton debt before the court and take everything I own." "You own almost nothing," Nathan said. "I own the cabin where my sister lives." Nathan's anger stopped. Amos continued. "She is sick, she cannot travel. If Crow takes that place, she has nowhere to go." Clara saw the old man's hands trembling. "So you told Crow about the letter," she said. "I told him Sarah had hidden proof. I did not know where." "Until tonight," Nathan said. Amos looked at Lucy. "I followed you to the hill. I saw the box." Lucy drew the wooden horse closer. You could have helped the man who chased me. No. But you told him. I did. Lucy's eyes filled with tears. Clara moved toward her, but the girl stepped away. What is the difference? Lucy asked. Amos had no answer. The wind shook the windows. Nathan lowered the rifle, though his face remained hard. What is beneath the apple tree? I do not know, but Crow believes it is the original Fort Benton note, signed by him and witnessed by your father. That would prove his motive, Clara said. And his lie, Nathan added. Amos nodded. If the judge sees it beside the true survey, Crow's claim falls apart. He may face charges for changing the record. Then why did Sarah not give it to Nathan years ago? Clara asked. Amos looked toward him. Because Crow was not moving against the ranch then. Sarah feared that bringing it forward without cause would destroy my sister's home and perhaps mine. She chose to hide it until the land was threatened. Nathan turned away. Clara understood the pain in his silence. Sarah had carried all of this while he believed she had only been worrying over winter stores and Lucy's lessons. She had protected the ranch from beyond her own fear. Nathan looked at Clara. We ride now. The storm is worsening. Crow's men will not wait for morning. Amos placed his hat back on. They are already on the north road. Nathan moved toward the door. Clara caught his arm. Lucy stays here. No, Lucy said. Both adults looked at her. She held up the broken wooden horse. Mama said the key was with me. You already gave us the key, Nathan said. Lucy shook her head. That was the small key. She pressed the horse's hidden panel again, then pushed deeper with one finger. A second piece of wood loosened. Inside lay a thin brass token, no larger than a coin. One side bore the shape of an apple branch. The other had 3 numbers stamped into it. Nathan stared. What is that? Lucy swallowed. Mama told me I would know when to show you. Clara studied the numbers. Those may mark a direction or a distance. Amos stepped closer. Elias used numbers like that on survey markers. Nathan took the token. Then we need Lucy. No, Clara said. Nathan looked at her. She is 8 years old. And she may be the only person who knows what Sarah showed her. Lucy lifted her chin. I remember the tree. Nathan's face tightened with fear. Clara saw the choice tearing at him. Keep his daughter safe in the house, or take her toward men willing to break locks and chase children. Then Ben entered from the back room with a shotgun in his hands. I will stay with her, he said. Lucy shook her head. You do not know where Mama buried it. I know the old cabin, Ben replied. But not the stones. Everyone went still. What stones? Nathan asked. Lucy looked toward the dark northern fields. The 3 white stones under the roots. Lightning lit the room. For one bright second, Nathan saw Sarah's plan clearly. The hidden key, the token, the stones, each piece had been divided so no one person could lead Crow to the truth. Not even him. Clara wrapped a coat around Lucy's shoulders. We all go, she said. We stay together and we do not take the open road. Nathan looked at her. You are not coming. I crossed 1,000 miles to reach this house. I will not hide in it now. Something passed between them then, not love, not yet. But trust, thin and strong as the first light before dawn. Nathan nodded. They left through the barn and rode north beneath the storm. Ben led them along a dry creek bed hidden from the road. Amos followed behind, glancing often over his shoulder. Lucy sat in front of Nathan, the wooden horse tucked inside her coat. The old cabin appeared through the rain as a black shape beneath the cottonwoods. Then Clara saw lantern light moving between the trees. One lantern. Then another. Crow's men had arrived first. Nathan raised one hand, and the group stopped in the shadows. Near the apple tree, two men were digging. A third stood beside the cabin door. And beneath the porch roof, dry and calm despite the storm, stood Sila's crow. He looked into the darkness as though he had been expecting them. Then he called out Nathan's name. And beside him, tied to a chair inside the cabin, was the courthouse clerk. Nathan did not answer Crow. Rain ran from the brim of his hat and down the side of his face as he studied the cabin. The two men near the apple tree had stopped digging. One held a shovel, the other rested a hand near his belt. Inside the doorway, Mr. Pike sat tied to a chair. A cloth had been pulled away from his mouth, and his spectacles hung crooked across his nose. Sila's crow remained beneath the porch roof. "You brought the child," he said. Nathan's arm tightened around Lucy. "You entered my house." Crow gave a small shrug. "I asked for records that never belonged in your desk. You chased my daughter. That was not my instruction." Lucy looked past Nathan toward the man holding the shovel. "It was him." The man's face changed. Only slightly. But Clara saw it. Crow saw it too. He turned his head. "You told me the house was empty." The man shifted his weight. "It should have been." Nathan's voice became low. "You frightened an 8-year-old girl." Crow looked back at him. "And yet she appears unharmed." Clara stepped from the creek bed. Nathan reached for her sleeve, but she moved beyond his hand. Mr. Pike's eyes widened when he saw her. Crow smiled. "Miss Bennett, I wondered whether common sense had sent you back east." "Common sense is what brought me here." Crow's smile thinned. Clara looked toward the half-dug earth beneath the apple tree. "You do not know where the record is." Crow's eyes sharpened. "We will find it." "No," Clara said. "You will destroy every root around that tree and still leave empty-handed." The man with the shovel glanced toward Crow. That told Clara enough. They had been searching blindly. Crow stepped down from the porch. "What do you know?" Clara kept her voice calm. "Enough to understand why you tied up a courthouse clerk in the middle of a storm." Mr. Pike lowered his head. Crow looked toward him with contempt. He became nervous. "He became honest," Clara said. "No, he became weak." Amos moved out of the shadows. Crow stopped. For the first time that night, real surprise crossed his face. "Amos." The old man dismounted slowly. "You should let Pike go." Crow gave a quiet laugh. "You have hidden from the truth for 30 years. Do not attempt courage now." Amos's hand trembled near his side. "I hid because you taught me fear was the same as loyalty. You signed the paper in Fort Benton. Because you begged me. You signed it. And Elias paid your debt." Crow's calm expression cracked. "Only for a heartbeat." Nathan saw it. "So it is true," he said. "My father saved you." Crow looked at him. "Your father enjoyed making men owe him." "No," Amos said. "Elias kept your wife from losing her home." The words struck Crow harder than any accusation. His face became cold. "Do not speak of her." "Why?" Amos asked. "Because she knew what kind of man you were." Crow took one step forward. One of his men reached for Amos, but Crow raised a hand. The man stopped. Clara glanced at Ben. He stood behind Nathan with the shotgun lowered but ready. They were outnumbered but not helpless. The storm might keep others away. It might also hide what happened here. Clara looked down at Lucy. The girl was staring at the apple tree. Not at the men. At the roots. Her lips moved as though counting. 3 white stones. Clara followed her gaze and saw them beneath the mud, partly hidden near the western side of the trunk. Lucy touched Nathan's arm and whispered in his ear. He looked toward the stones, then at Clara. Crow noticed the movement. "What did she say?" No concern of yours, Nathan replied. Crow's patience vanished. Bring me the box. Nathan's face gave nothing away. What box? Crow looked at Amos. The old man's shame answered for him. You found Sarah's papers, Crow said. You have the survey map and Elias' notebook. And a letter bearing your signature, Clara added. Crow's eyes moved to her. You should be careful about repeating claims you cannot prove. I read the letter. A letter can be copied. So can a boundary date. Mr. Pike lifted his head. Crow turned toward him. The clerk spoke quickly. She saw the altered ink, she knows. Crow's man struck the back of the chair, making Pike flinch. Nathan stepped forward. Touch him again and this ends badly. Crow smiled without warmth. It already has. He reached into his coat and removed a folded paper. Even in the rain, Clara recognized the red string tied around it. The filing from the courthouse. Crow held it up. This is the official record. It says the boundary was registered in 1871. It was changed, Clara said. By whom? Mr. Pike swallowed. By me. Everyone went still. Crow turned slowly. Pike's breathing shook, but he continued. Mr. Crow told me to copy the date differently. He said no one would check the original. Crow stared at him. Pike's voice grew stronger. He took the ledger himself. Crow's expression hardened into something empty. You have just ruined your life. No, Pike said, I ruined it when I obeyed you. Clara saw the change in the room. Crow's control had depended on each frightened man believing he stood alone. Amos had stepped forward. Now Pike had too. One truth had made room for another. Crow folded the filing. Confession from a dishonest clerk, he said, nothing more. Nathan looked toward Lucy. She gave the smallest nod. Then she slipped from the saddle. Crow's men noticed too late. Lucy ran toward the tree. Stop her, Crow shouted. The man with the shovel lunged, but Ben stepped between them and raised the shotgun. No farther. The second man moved toward Nathan. Amos blocked his path. For one breathless moment, no one knew which side would move first. Lucy dropped to her knees beside the 3 white stones. She pulled the brass token from her coat and pressed it into a narrow hollow in the middle stone. A soft click came from beneath the roots. Crow's face changed. There, he said. Nathan reached Lucy just as she lifted a flat piece of stone from the earth. Beneath it sat a narrow tin cylinder sealed with wax. Crow started forward. Nathan pulled Lucy behind him. You have lost, he said. Crow stopped. No, you found an old container in the dirt. Clara took the cylinder from Nathan. The wax bore a clear mark. A crow standing above a river. Crow's family seal. Amos stared at it. That is the Fort Benton contract. Crow's voice sharpened. You do not know that. I watched you seal it. The rain seemed to quiet around them. Clara broke the wax and drew out a rolled page protected by oilcloth. The writing remained clear. Silas Crow's name appeared at the bottom, beside the amount Elias Hale had paid on his behalf. Beneath it stood Amos's false acceptance of the debt and a separate statement signed later by Crow. The river pasture will stand as security until repayment is made in full. Nathan read the line over Clara's shoulder. Crow had tried to take the river by turning his own unpaid debt into a claim against the man who had saved him. Clara looked up. The eastern land was never yours. Crow stared at the page. For the first time, he looked old. Then one of his men moved. Not toward Nathan. Toward the paper. He knocked Clara's arm aside and seized the contract. Ben shouted. The man ran for the horses, but his boots slid in the mud. He fell hard, losing the page beneath the rain. Crow rushed forward. Lucy reached it first. She snatched the oilcloth bundle from the ground and held it against her chest. Crow stopped 2 steps away from her. Nathan raised the rifle. "Do not." Crow looked at Lucy. For a moment, his face held no anger. Only desperation. "Give me that paper," he said. Lucy shook her head. "It belongs to my family. It belongs to the past." "No," she said, "it tells the truth now." Crow's hand lowered. Behind him came the sound of several horses approaching through the storm. Lanterns appeared between the trees. The sheriff rode at the front, followed by 3 townsmen. Mr. Pike began shouting from the cabin. "Here, we are here." Crow turned toward Amos. "You sent for them?" Amos shook his head. Clara looked at Ben. He gave a faint nod. Before leaving the ranch, he had sent a rider by the southern trail. The sheriff dismounted and looked over the scene. The tied clerk, the dug earth, the armed men, and Lucy standing in the rain with the contract in her hands. Someone had better explain. Clara stepped forward. "I will." Crow looked at her with quiet hatred. "You came here looking for a husband," he said. "You have no place in this." Clara held his gaze. "I came here looking for an honest life. That gives me every reason to stand against a lie." The sheriff untied Mr. Pike and took the Fort Benton contract. Crow's men lowered their hands. But Crow did not. He stared at Nathan. "You think this ends with a piece of paper?" Nathan pulled Lucy close. "It ends with the truth." "No," Crow said. "The truth is that your father's kindness made him weak. Sarah's secrets made her foolish. And this woman will leave the moment she understands what staying beside you costs." Clara felt the words strike Nathan. Crow saw it too. Then the sheriff placed a hand on Crow's shoulder. "Silas, you are coming back to town." Crow allowed himself to be led away, but his final look remained fixed on Nathan. The storm began to pass before dawn. Back at the ranch, Lucy slept beside the kitchen stove while Ben kept watch at the door. Amos had gone with the sheriff to give his statement. Nathan stood by the window, silent. Clara cleaned the mud from the broken wooden horse and fitted the loose leg back into place. "You were right," Nathan said. "About what?" Crow knew where to strike. Clara looked at him. "He lied. He said you would leave when you understood the cost." She set the wooden horse down. "I understand more now than I did yesterday." "That does not answer me." "No," Clara said softly, "it does not." Nathan turned from the window. For the first time there was no wall in his face, only fear. Not fear of losing the ranch. Fear of believing she might stay. Clara picked up the repaired horse and placed it beside Lucy's hand. "If this family's courage has stayed with you, tell me this. Would you trust a home built after so much fear, or would you walk away before it could break your heart?" Nathan took 1 step toward her. Then a knock sounded at the door. Ben opened it. The sheriff stood on the porch with a grim expression. "Crow is in custody," he said, "but there is another problem." Nathan's shoulders stiffened. "What problem?" "The judge arrives tomorrow." "That should help us." The sheriff shook his head. "Crow filed 1 more petition before we took him." Clara felt the room tighten. "What petition?" The sheriff looked toward Lucy sleeping by the stove. "He claims Miss Bennett entered this household through fraud and helped place the child in danger." Nathan's face went pale. "And what does he want?" "A temporary order removing Lucy from the ranch until the court decides whether this home is fit for her." Lucy opened her eyes. She had heard every word. Lucy sat up beside the stove. The blanket slipped from her shoulders, but she did not reach for it. "They are taking me away." Nathan crossed the room at once. "No." The sheriff removed his hat. "I did not say the court had granted anything." But Crow asked, Lucy whispered. Yes. Nathan knelt in front of her. He will not decide where you belong. Lucy looked at him with the same frightened eyes she had worn on Clara's first night at the ranch. Grown people keep deciding things without asking me. Nathan flinched. Clara saw it. So did the sheriff. No one corrected the child because there was nothing to correct. The hearing was set for the next afternoon in Cedar Ridge. Until then, the sheriff allowed Lucy to remain at the ranch under Nathan's care, though one of his deputies would stay nearby. Crow's petition accused Clara of entering the Hale household under a false understanding, encouraging Lucy to take part in the search, and placing her near armed men during the storm. It said Nathan's grief had made him reckless and that the ranch had become unsafe. Every accusation twisted part of the truth. That made it dangerous. A complete lie could be broken. A truth bent in the wrong direction was harder. After the sheriff left, Lucy returned to bed, though sleep did not come easily. Clara sat beside her until the girl's breathing finally slowed. Nathan waited in the kitchen. The first light of morning had begun to touch the windows when Clara came downstairs. He was sitting at the table with Sarah's letter open before him. "You should sleep," she said. "So should you." Neither moved. The repaired wooden horse stood between them. Nathan looked at it. "You fixed the leg. For now, the break is old. It will need care." His eyes lifted to hers. Like everything in this house. Clara sat across from him. Nathan folded Sarah's letter, but did not put it away. Crow was right about one thing. Clara felt a weariness settle over her. "You keep giving that man more wisdom than he deserves. He said you came here for a husband. I came because of the letters. Some of which were not mine. Most were." Nathan leaned back. "And those were written by a man who failed to tell you about the debt, Crow, Sarah's papers, and half the dangers waiting here." "Yes. Why are you still here?" The question was quiet. Not suspicious. Almost pleading. Clara looked toward the stairs. "Because Lucy asked me to stay." His face closed. She continued before he could misunderstand. "That was the reason at first." Nathan remained still. Clara placed her hands on the table. "Then I saw a man who carries guilt as though putting it down would dishonor the woman he lost. I saw a father so afraid of failing his child that he nearly sent away anyone who might help him. And I saw a home that has been waiting for someone to open the curtains." Nathan looked toward the dark window. "You make it sound simple." "It is not simple." "Then what is it?" Clara swallowed. "It is a choice." His gaze returned to her. "And have you made it?" Before she could answer, Lucy's bedroom door opened upstairs. Small footsteps moved toward the stairs. Clara lowered her voice. "I will make it where she can hear." Nathan stood. "You do not owe us that." "No," Clara said, "I do not." Lucy appeared at the bottom of the stairs wearing her yellow dress and holding Sarah's letter. Neither Clara nor Nathan had heard her take it. "I know where Mama wanted this read," she said. Nathan's face tightened. "Lucy, that letter belongs at the hearing." "I know." She looked at Clara. She wanted people to know something else. Clara took the page and examined it. There was writing on the front, but when she held it near the lamp, she noticed faint marks pressing through from the other side. She turned it over. The back appeared blank. "Lemon juice," Clara said. Nathan frowned. "What?" "My uncle once used it to hide figures from a dishonest supplier. Heat makes the writing show." They held the back of the letter near the stove. Slowly, pale brown words appeared. Nathan read them first. His hand began to shake. Clara read over his shoulder. "If there comes a day when others claim Nathan is unfit to raise our daughter, let them know this. Grief may make him silent, but it has never made him cruel. He stayed awake through every fever Lucy ever had. He learned to braid her hair badly because she cried when mine was cut during the illness. He sold his father's watch to keep medicine in this house. A man should not lose his child because sorrow changed the sound of his voice. Lucy pressed close to Nathan's side. There was more. And if another woman comes into this home, do not ask whether she can replace me. Ask whether she sees Lucy clearly, whether she speaks truth to Nathan, and whether she stays when leaving would be easier. That is the mother I would choose for my daughter. Nathan could not continue. He handed the page to Clara and turned away. Lucy watched him. Papa. Nathan covered his mouth with one hand. Clara had never seen him cry before. He made no sound. His shoulders simply bent beneath the weight of being defended by a woman who had known she would not live to speak for him herself. Lucy wrapped both arms around his waist. Nathan knelt and held her. Clara looked down at Sarah's hidden words. The last line had darkened more slowly than the rest. Do not let fear decide for you after I am gone. Clara folded the letter carefully. The hearing began after noon. The courthouse was too small for everyone who came. Ranchers stood along the walls. Women from town filled the back benches. Amos sat near the front beside Mr. Pike, both waiting to give statements against Crow. Crow himself was brought in under guard. His coat remained clean. His expression remained calm. But the town no longer looked at him the way it once had. The judge, a heavyset woman named Margaret Cole, listened first to the land matter. She reviewed the Fort Benton contract, Elias Hale's notebook, Crow's letter, and Pike's confession about altering the survey copy. Then she turned to the question of Lucy. Crow's lawyer argued that Nathan had exposed the child to danger by taking her to the old cabin. Nathan rose. I did. Clara looked at him. He did not hide behind excuses. I believed the proof beneath that tree was necessary to protect her home. I also believed keeping her beside me was safer than leaving her where Crow's men had already entered once. I may have been wrong. The room became quiet. Nathan continued. But I will not claim I made every choice well. I have spent years confusing fear with protection. Judge Cole studied him. That is an unusual admission in this room. It is the truth. Crow's lawyer called Clara forward. He questioned the letters, her journey, and Lucy's deception. You came here expecting marriage, he said. Yes. And discovered the final letters had been written by a child. Yes. Yet you remained. Yes. Why? Clara looked toward Lucy. The girl sat beside Nathan, her hand inside his. Clara turned back to the judge. At first, because she asked me to. The lawyer smiled as though he had caught her. So your judgment was guided by an emotional child. No, Clara said, my attention was. His smile faded. She continued. Lucy showed me what the adults around her were refusing to say. Her father was frightened. Mr. Crow was dishonest. Mr. Webb was trapped by shame. Mr. Pike was trapped by fear. And Lucy was trapped inside decisions everyone claimed were being made for her. The judge leaned forward. And what do you believe she needs? Not someone who promises never to fail. She needs people who tell the truth after they do. Nathan looked at her. Clara felt the whole room waiting. She took Sarah's letter from her coat. There is another statement. Crow's lawyer objected, but Judge Cole allowed it. Clara read the hidden words aloud. No one moved while she spoke. When she reached the line about the mother Sarah would choose, her voice nearly broke. She steadied it. Then she placed the letter before the judge. Judge Cole looked toward Lucy. Come forward, child. Lucy stood. Nathan moved with her, but the judge raised one hand. Let her answer alone. Lucy walked to the front with the repaired wooden horse held against her dress. The judge's voice softened. Do you feel safe with your father? Yes. Do you feel safe with Miss Bennett? Yes. Did either of them force you to go to the cabin? No. Why did you go? Lucy looked at Crow. Because Mama left the truth there. Then she turned toward the judge. And because every time grown people are scared, they tell me to wait somewhere else. A quiet murmur moved through the room. The judge glanced toward Nathan. He lowered his eyes. Lucy continued. Papa makes mistakes, Clara does too, but they come back and tell me. Mr. Crow only says his wrong things are somebody else's fault. Crow's face went cold. The judge looked down at the letter, then at the child. And where do you wish to live? Lucy's answer came without hesitation. At the ranch. With whom? She looked at Nathan. Then at Clara. With my father and with her, if she still chooses us. The room became so quiet that Clara heard a horse stamp outside. Lucy turned toward her. There was no demand in her face now. Only hope. Clara stood. She had crossed 1,000 miles expecting to enter a marriage. Instead, she had found a choice no letter could make for her. She walked to Lucy and took her hand. I choose you, she said. Nathan looked at her as though the words had opened a door he had been afraid to touch. The judge cleared her throat. The court denies the petition for removal. A breath passed through the room. Lucy began to cry. Nathan pulled her close. Judge Cole lifted the Fort Benton contract. The boundary claim is suspended pending formal review, and the original Hale line will remain in force. Mr. Crow's conduct will be referred for criminal proceedings. For the first time, Silas Crow's calm broke completely. He rose. This court is accepting the word of a frightened clerk, a coward, a child, and a woman who arrived 4 days ago. Judge Cole looked at him without blinking. Yes, she said, the truth does not become weaker because you dislike who speaks it. The sheriff took Crow by the arm. As he was led away, he looked at Nathan. You have not won anything. She has not married you. Nathan did not answer. Clara did. No, she said, and that is why my choice matters. Outside the courthouse, the town gathered around them. Some offered congratulations. Others apologized for having trusted Crow too long. Amos stood apart from the crowd. Lucy approached him. He removed his hat. I am sorry, he said. Lucy studied him. Will you tell the whole truth now? Yes. Even if you lose your cabin. Amos looked toward the courthouse. Yes. Lucy held out the repaired wooden horse. Amos stared at it. I do not deserve that. It is not for you to keep, she said. I just wanted you to see that broken does not mean finished. Amos covered his eyes for a moment. If this truth has stayed with you, remember that courage does not always arrive without fear. Sometimes it is simply the moment a frightened person finally speaks. That evening, Clara and Nathan rode back to the ranch with Lucy between them. The sky had cleared, rain shone on the grass, and the eastern river caught the last gold light of day. At Sarah's Hill, Nathan stopped. Lucy dismounted and placed a small wildflower near the grave. Clara remained a few steps away. Nathan came to stand beside her. You said you chose Lucy. I did. He looked toward his daughter. And the ranch? I have not decided. His face tightened, though he tried to hide it. Clara turned toward him. And you, Nathan? He met her eyes. I do not know how to ask you to stay without making it sound like another debt. Then do not ask tonight. The answer surprised him. Clara looked toward the house in the distance. I want my choice to come from something stronger than danger, gratitude, or a courtroom. Nathan nodded slowly. I understand. But as they crossed the yard, they saw Ben standing on the porch with a letter in his hand. It came on the evening stage, he said. Clara recognized the handwriting before she took it. Her Uncle S. The message was brief. The boarding house in Missouri had been sold. A place had opened for Clara with the new owners. A return ticket had been purchased in her name. The train would leave Cedar Ridge in 2 days. Nathan read her face. "What is it?" Clara folded the letter. "A way home." Lucy stood very still between them. And for the first time since Clara arrived, no one tried to tell her which way she should go. Clara placed the letter on the kitchen table. Lucy looked at it as though it were a train ticket already pulling away. Nathan did not ask her to explain. He stood near the stove, one hand resting on the back of a chair, giving her the silence she had asked for. That almost made the choice harder. "The new owners will give me work," Clara said. "A room, too." Nathan nodded. "You would be safe there?" "Yes." Lucy's fingers tightened around the repaired wooden horse. "Do you want to go?" Clara looked at her. The honest answer did not come quickly. "I know what waits for me in Missouri." Lucy lowered her eyes. "And you do not know what waits here?" "No." Nathan stared toward the dark window. Clara saw him preparing himself to lose her. His shoulders had taken on the same hard shape they carried when she first arrived, as though hope were something a man should put away before another person could take it. She rose from the table. "I need to think." Nathan moved aside so she could pass. He did not reach for her. He did not tell her to stay. That night Clara could not sleep. She opened the wardrobe in the room Nathan had once meant to give her after the wedding. Sarah's blue shawl still hung on a peg. Clara touched the edge of it, then drew her hand back. She thought of Missouri, the boarding house kitchen, the narrow room under the roof, the familiar streets where no one expected her to risk her heart. Then she thought of Lucy beneath the kitchen table, secretly writing letters because the adults around her had forgotten how to speak. She thought of Nathan riding through grief as though he still searched for a doctor he would never reach in time. Near dawn, Clara heard quiet footsteps outside. Nathan sat on the porch steps with the repaired wooden horse in his hands. She opened the door. He looked up. Lucy left this on the table. Clara sat beside him. The ranch was still. A thin mist covered the pasture, and the eastern sky had begun to pale. Nathan turned the wooden horse over. Clara looked at the repaired leg. Some breaks remain visible. "Yes." "Even after they mend?" "Yes." Nathan's thumb moved over the old crack. "I have spent 2 years believing Sarah's death meant I had no right to ask anything of life again." Clara waited. "I told myself I was protecting Lucy. I was protecting the ranch. But most days I was only protecting my grief from being changed." He set the horse between them. "When you arrived, I wanted to send you away before this place could matter to you, before you could matter to us." Clara's throat tightened. Nathan looked at her fully. "I will not ask you to stay because Lucy needs you." She said nothing. "I will not ask because the ranch needs you, or because you helped save it." His voice grew quieter. "I am asking because I do." Clara felt the truth of it settle inside her. Not a debt. Not a bargain. A choice offered freely. Nathan continued. "I do not know how to promise you an easy life. Winter will come. Cattle will get through fences. I will say the wrong thing and believe silence is better when it is not." A faint smile touched Clara's mouth. "That part I already know." He almost smiled too. "But I can promise this," he said. "I will not decide for you and call it kindness again." The porch door opened behind them. Lucy stood wrapped in her quilt. She had been listening. Again, Nathan glanced back at her. "Were you meant to be asleep?" "Yes." "Were you?" "No." Clara held out a hand. Lucy came between them and sat on the step. "Did you decide?" she asked. Clara looked toward the eastern hill. Sunlight reached Sarah's grave first, turning the wet grass gold. Yes. Lucy stopped breathing. Clara took the letter from Missouri from her pocket. I am not going back. Lucy threw her arms around her so suddenly that Clara nearly lost her balance. Nathan closed his eyes. The relief on his face was quiet but complete. Clara held Lucy close. I am not staying because you asked me to, she whispered. Lucy drew back, worried. I am staying because I choose this life, all of it. She looked at Nathan. The hard winters, the burned biscuits, the truth even when it arrives late. Nathan reached for her hand. And the weddings? Clara raised one eyebrow. That depends. On what? Whether you intend to propose properly this time. Nathan stood. Lucy covered her mouth to hide a laugh. He removed his hat and faced Clara with the serious expression of a man approaching the most important work of his life. Clara Bennett, I cannot offer you a perfect home. I would not trust one. I can offer you an honest one. She looked at his outstretched hand. Then she placed hers inside it. That will do. They married 3 weeks later beneath the cottonwood near the old cabin. The apple tree stood behind them, its roots covered again, no longer guarding secrets. Judge Cole performed the ceremony. Amos served as witness after giving his full statement. Mr. Pike brought the courthouse ledger, restored to its true date, so Nathan could see his father's boundary made right. Silas Crow lost his claim, his standing, and the power he had built through fear. The court ordered the river land returned beyond dispute. Amos's cabin remained his after Nathan used part of the recovered debt to settle the old Fort Benton paper. Justice did not arrive with vengeance. It arrived through records restored, frightened voices heard, and one child brave enough to protect the truth. By spring, curtains hung in the ranch windows. Clara planted beans near the porch and apple seeds beside Sarah's tree. Nathan learned to make biscuits without burning the bottoms, though Lucy claimed they remained safer with honey. On Sarah's birthday, the three of them climbed the eastern hill. Clara placed the blue shawl across the grave for the afternoon, letting the wind move through it. I hope she would approve, Clara said. Lucy slipped her hand into hers. She already did. Nathan stood beside them, without reaching for the guilt he had carried so long. Below, the river shone across the land his father had protected. Near the porch, the repaired wooden horse rested on the windowsill, its old crack still visible in the morning light. If this family's journey touched your heart, remember that healing does not erase what was broken. It teaches us how to hold it with care. Subscribe for more emotional frontier stories where courage, love, and truth find their way home. Years later, when Lucy was grown, she would still tell people that Clara had crossed 1,000 miles to marry a rancher. But that was not the whole truth. Clara had crossed the distance to find a home. And the home had begun with a little girl's stolen letters, a broken wooden horse, and a father who finally learned that love was not another thing he had to lose.